What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for episode 14 of A Man and His Bricks with my good friend Thick, the other co-host. Thank you guys for joining. Welcome, Thick. How
It's
you
good to
doing,
be
man?
here. I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Good. We've got a good episode for you guys. I dropped the ball a little bit last week, not gonna lie, and I felt like I just came with a lackluster energy. I was a little bit behind, so we took some time. We planned. Thick's got a great Q&A topic for us. We've got some good stuff in the works. But before we get in, let's see who is hanging out, who's chilling today. Welcome to the stream, Levi. We've got Max, Caleb the Collector, Scott Davis, Nate Dog 101, Lego Men 360. What's up, man? Dodger, Star Motion. Oh, yeah. We got some people in the chat today. Welcome, everyone. Don't forget to smash the old like button on your way in here. And so you guys are pretty familiar with the podcast. You know how it goes. We've got 3 segments. First one is Life of an AFOL. Me and Thick just kind of go through, talk a little bit about our life if we want to, a little bit behind the scenes. Maybe there's some thoughts on our mind, just something we've been thinking about, problem we've been dealing with, or just, that's basically our segment for just random topics. And then we do the themed Q&A. And for this theme, or this week, the theme is how to get into a creative headspace, like how to seek out, how to become creative, anything to do with that. It can be content related, it can be job related, it can be lifestyle related. So give us your questions and your thoughts with that when the time comes. And then the third segment will be the Mando discussion. We won't be talking about the episode that came out this week, just the previous one. So if you've only seen the previous one and haven't seen this week's, don't worry, we won't spoil anything about that. And then welcome to anybody else just joining. Scott, is Scott the only mod today? Ooh, Scott, you're going to be holding down the fort for us. If anyone's complaining that we're missing messages and stuff, just let them know. Podcast style. We don't interact with the chat as much in the beginning, but we'll get to it with the Q&As. But welcome, Christine, Dubsy, Logan, LVD, anybody else. Thank you guys for joining. Let's get started. How's your 2 weeks been, man, since the last episode?
Yeah, man. I'm. These are like the highlight of my every 2 weeks. So these are fun for me. It's been decent. I've been working, just like running my store. Working on some new products. Just typical Lego stuff. I was showing you before the stream, but I just bought a new set, the Anakin's Jedi modified starfighter. So I'm going to be building that on stream. It's one I've been wanting for a little bit now, and yeah, just life of an AFOL, typical stuff.
Business as usual. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, actually, I did have something crazy happen. I was talking to you about it. I got scammed so hard this week.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it on the stream because I want to do a specific video on it because I don't, you get scammed. You want to, let's make some fanfare. Let's get the most we can out of it. It's a wild one. Like, this isn't your typical, like, I got scammed out of like a $10 clone trooper. Like and this one I caught him too, because it wasn't like they completely, escaped. Like I got them. I made them give me the money back. Like the whole thing worked out in the end for me because now I have a fake minifigure. I get to make a video. I get to make some extra money. But like it was pretty stressful for a little bit there because that doesn't happen very often. So that happened to me on Monday, which, great start to the week. Love starting the week by getting scammed. It's very rare minifigure, very expensive. So
Yeah. That's one of those where capital, like I'm glad you got your money back. I'm looking forward to hearing the story, but capitalized on the opportunity.
Yeah, as soon as I got my money back, I was like, okay, let's capitalize on this. But trying to think, I have just been busy, dude. I have been so busy. I'm trying to finish Coruscant. I'm in the home stretch. I've got a few like a couple podcasts and other things that I've been doing this week, and so I just have been so busy working a lot of the time, trying to get Coruscant done quickly, and I'm in kind of that final stretch to where it's like I just got to put a lot more time and effort into the updates, but it's good, it's good to be busy. So kind of one thing we wanted to talk about a little bit, there's a couple of things. So we want to talk about Indiana Jones, the new set releases. We're not going to like show the sets because everybody else does. You guys have seen the sets, you see the pictures. We're going to talk more about like what's going on with it. I want to talk about the cancellation of one of the episodes. So or not episodes, one of the sets. And then we also wanted to talk conventions. Because I was listening to David Solid Brick Studios as a podcast with his friend Aaron, and they were recently talking about conventions because they're hardcore convention goers. And I've only ever been to one. I don't know. Have you been to any, Vic?
I went to Brick Fair, Virginia last year in August. Otherwise, I have not been to any
Okay. So
convention.
we're both pretty green behind the ears when it comes to conventions. But I was curious. I want to get like, because they're the people who are like, oh, I love conventions. Conventions are everything. And I wanted to kind of get like, what is your perspective on the Lego convention?
Well, it's cool because it's like the one place you can really go to like communally meet people who are part of the hobby outside of the internet. The internet's a cool tool because of the fact that it allows you to like meet people who are into the same stuff as you from like maybe the other side of the country or the world. But the convention is something where you can actually go in person, see people's builds, see people's different aspects to the community and see that in person. So conventions are cool in that aspect. It really like allows you, especially if you know people from online, it allows you to put a lot of faces to names. Last year when I went there, I met a lot of people who I was like, oh, I know who you are from online.
Who's the biggest celebrity Lego influencer you met there?
Who did I meet? I met Epic Bricks. You know him, right?
That sounds really familiar. I feel like if I were to see, does he have like a
spells
channel?
he spells he's like a tall dude. Epic with a K, Bricks. So
I probably know who it is.
there was like I think Eminar, like all those other YouTube people were there. So it's cool. You meet a lot of people, you put a lot of faces to names, and it was funny because like even me, like I had posted my face I hadn't, these days I'm more like open about like posting my face in places. Back then I'm still a pretty private person, but I just wasn't posting my face anywhere. And like even then, like I still had a few people still come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, are you da da da?" I was like, "I know that." But yeah, man, it's cool to like actually get to meet people, and most people are cool. Like no one's really mean. People are just doing their thing, and it's cool to just experience it and go and like have a good time.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things, because I had two things I want to touch on where I had an interesting experience with my first convention because I didn't really enjoy it, but
Yeah.
like there are aspects to that could be changed for me to enjoy it. And so the first thing I'll say is like it's cool to go to a place where everybody is as obsessed as or more obsessed than you are with Lego, right? That very rarely happens to any of us. Most of the time, anywhere we go, we're the Lego obsessed person, right? We're the Lego fan. And then you go there and everybody is at that same level as you or around that same level, which is really cool to feed off of that energy and go somewhere where you feel celebrated, right? The people who go, we as Lego lovers who go to the conventions, we go there and you feel celebrated, you feel cool, you feel like you're part of a larger thing instead of your more typical life. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like we all kind of feel that same sense of isolation in that fact because, there just aren't a whole lot of Lego fans in our day-to-day walks of life. Not mine, anyways. So it's cool in that regard. However, I will say the thing I struggled with was really just the convention itself was kind of a isolating experience, which sounds ironic considering I just said all those other things. But like, I feel like you should either try and go with someone, don't go by yourself, because I went completely by myself. And so there were people who came up to me and said hi, which was definitely fun. And I got to hang out with Clone Plays. But like the majority of the time, I just felt kind of lonely just walking around by myself, didn't really know what to do or where to put myself. So if you're going for your first time, maybe bring a friend with you. Go see if you can seek someone else. I mean, part of it too was I was displaying, so I felt like I had to be there for longer. So I think it would have been different if I just went as a casual fan, went for a few hours. So because I was there, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I didn't really know anybody, and I got to meet a few people, but there was I didn't have like this group that a lot of the other people were rolling around with. And I did also get to meet Clayton, the legendary Clayton Alvey, a good friend of the channel. But I think if I do go again, I'll definitely want to bring someone with me and kind of go with someone.
I know what you mean by that because for me personally, like when I went, like I told you, I've only been to one convention, but when I went to Brickfair, Virginia last year. I did go alone, but I was like meeting people there who I knew through the internet, and it wasn't like necessarily like I didn't have anyone to like spend time with. Even though I like walked around a lot alone, and like, you know, I'm okay being alone. Like I'm that type of person personally. You know, I feel like most of us probably are. Like we, you know, but I'm just I knew plenty of people going there, so it's like I already had some connection. But I can imagine, you know, going alone to some big thing like that can make maybe feel a little bit weird. So
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Especially if you're especially if you're displaying. Like I said, it was probably a different story if I hadn't been displaying, because it was more of like, you know, I got to know people, and like, don't get me wrong, I don't want anyone to who met me to think like, oh, I didn't like, he didn't care. Like, it was really fun to meet people. It was just kind of like the walking around. Like I think because, you know, you hear like these groups that go to conventions and they all hang out together and like do stuff the whole time. They go out to dinner after, and like that kind of thing. It can be a little bit more hard to see that happening, but then you yourself are not really in any of that, if that makes sense. But that's just my experience. Like, I think it will be probably be different the next time I go.
Well, here's the thing. I think, you know, you kind of have to train yourself when you go to something like this, like such a public event, like just to have a really open mind, because like you're gonna meet so many different people, and you never know like who you're gonna meet that you could become friends with, or you know, you never know what could happen and something like that. So I think it's really important to go to these types of events with like a really open mind and just like let it, just like focus on having a good time and like meeting as many people as possible, and just like, yeah, having a good time, because I feel like, you know, everyone goes there, and like I even had one person message me after the convention. It was like, I saw you there, but I was like really awkward and like was embarrassed to say hi. I was like, why are you embarrassed to say hi? You know. um, so like, you know, I think but it's a great opportunity to meet people who have similar interests, because like, you know, it's funny, man, like people, you were talking about like in our personal lives, like we're obviously like the Lego obsessed people. When my friends come over and they see my room, they're like, dude, like this is weird. But like, you know, like for me, it's not, because it's like, it's just what I do. But for them, they're like, it's like strange. Like, how many people do you meet who are just like have an obsession? You go into their house and it's like filled with like something, you know, whether it's like Beanie Babies or whatever, you know. So like, you know, it's cool to meet people who like just understand you and like don't necessarily like not judge you, because it's not necessarily like people are judging you, but just like get it. You know what I mean? Just people who get it and like understand the obsession.
Yeah, one thing I thought was cool was you can jump, like you were saying. I was able to jump right into conversations with people about
Yeah.
Lego, and like it was very comfortable. Like normally when you go to a social event and you meet someone, you start with the awkward, like, what do you do for work? Are you in school right now? Do you have kids? Like just these awkward kind of like just questionnaires that you kind of feel like you have to ask each other. But with Lego fans, you skip all of that and just go right to what you are excited about, and right to what you're, you know, telling about your build, explaining issues you had, helping other people put things together and stuff like that. I'm just a very shy, withdrawn person, and so it's just kind of that's how it is for me. Is like being in a large group like that is I prefer to not be in those situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like you don't have to like explain yourself. That's the thing. You don't have to like, oh yeah, this is what I do. Like, oh, people are into that. Da da da. Like, you know, and it's like you kind of just like people get it, and it's like you're in it, and you don't have to do any explanations or like you know, predispositions. You know.
What's up? Shy time is my time. Long time no see, man. Imperial builds, minifig customs. Welcome everyone. We're talking about conventions. Just me and Thick. We've only ever been to one, so we're kind of rookies in that sense. So I wanted to gauge, because you know you hear about the people who've been to a lot of them and their experience, and like the people who have the large friend group and go and join the lugs. But I wanted to get kind of the take of like the newer people. And one thing I've been thinking about is I'm trying to decide if I want to ever display again at a convention, like a big mock of mine, because a lot of people, it kind of comes like in tandem with I want to see you at a convention is I want to see your build. I want to see your mocks at a convention. And so I'm in this kind of sometimes I get into this sticky situation of like I'm a little nervous to bring something because I feel like I have to bring an absolute masterpiece of a mock because I've built so much hype and I have built so much up around my big builds that I don't want people to be underwhelmed when they come and see me for the first time and I've got like this little mock with me or something. But the issue is it's very hard to transport this kind of stuff and bring this kind of stuff. So I have almost like this thought of like, man, is it better to just go and not bring something than go and bring something tiny? And people are like, oh, it's coconut. And he brought that. Oh, awesome. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to figure out like what what is a mock that I feel like I want to bring because I want to bring a masterpiece. I want to represent myself in the best way possible because I'd love to bring something like my acclimator or part of Coruscant, but I'm just very afraid to bring those things because those could break and get damaged, and I don't know that I would be able to rebuild them. And so that's kind of one of my thoughts is like, do I bring something like with you? Have you ever thought about like bringing minifigs and selling them, or do you just want to go and just hang out and have a good time?
Yeah, for me, like I I'm not really, I don't really do mocks.
Yeah.
Like people are like, "Oh, do you want to display something?" And I'm like, I'd probably embarrass myself if I did that, quite frankly. But have I thought about? Yeah, actually at Brick Fair, Virginia, the vendor tables on I think it was on Saturday night. They went up for sale. Like you could purchase a vendor table, and I was considering buying one. But when I go to these conventions, I like to meet people. I like to talk, and like for me personally, I don't want to just like sit behind a stand selling stuff for 2 days straight. Like I want to just go have a good time. Like I can make my money online. Like I'm not, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you don't need that for income.
Exactly. So it's like, not that it wouldn't be nice, but it's just like I can pass on it. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? So like, I'd rather just go to the convention, experience it, have a good time, meet some people, make some friends, talk to some people that I know from online, and then just do it that type of way rather than go as like the guy who's like displaying something or selling something. So that's just me personally.
That makes sense. Are you planning on going to any this year?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be at Brick Fair in whenever it is, August or something like that. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think it's usually like end of July, beginning of August, like
Yeah.
somewhere late summer.
Yeah, that's like my one convention I'll go to. I mean, I don't think they have any others that are really close to me, and that is like the biggest one. So for me, it's like a 3.5, 4 hour drive. So
Oh, that's
last year,
not
what
bad.
I did was I went for one day. So I woke up at like 4 a.m. I drove there, and then I drove home at like 6
The
p.m.
same day?
Yes.
Wow, that's
But
crazy.
this year I'm gonna get like a hotel and everything, just because I can't do that.
Right, that
Uh,
makes sense. That sounds rough, not gonna lie.
yeah.
That's cool.
So what
I'm
about
think
what about you? Like, I know you were saying you want to like display something and you want to have something cool, but like also, would you be cool with just showing up as yourself?
I don't know. That's the thing is like I don't know. Are so many people going to be expecting to see something with me? And I'm sure I'm not. I'm not sure. I'm sure people aren't going to get mad at me, but I just wonder because like my name is synonymous with Lego Star Wars Mox. I just like, oh, of course he's going to bring something. Like, what else would he do? And I live in Utah, as you know, so Brick Fair and Brick World are like a 12, 13 hour. I mean, Brick Fair would be even further, but like Brick World is like a 13-hour drive, I think. And so I'm not driving a mock for 13 hours, you know what I mean? So I'd have to fly out there, buy tickets, and like I'm married, which throws another wrench into the equation because obviously my wife wants to come with me, but I'm like, I keep telling her, like, you don't want to come. You're going to be so bored. Like, I take you to the Lego store and you're bored and you want to go after 2 minutes. Like, three
Yeah.
days of just the nerdiest, like me, just you're going to be hanging out with like 10,000 versions of me. Like, I know you don't want that. And so, like, there's that little issue of like, I feel bad leaving her because to her, she's like, well, I want to take some time off work. I want to go on a little vacation with you. But I'm like, at the same time, for me, I would see it as work in a way of like I'm
Yeah,
going to network. I'm
it would
going
be
to
like a
like
work trip for you. That's the thing.
yeah, I'm
Like,
I'm going to expand the brand, get my name out there because I do feel like for me that would be a big step of like a lot of people would get to meet me. A lot of people would come in contact with me. I would really get to know other big mock builders better because like me and you, we see each other every other week and we text. And so we know each other, but like there are other people that I don't have that with. So I feel like until I meet them in person and really get to interact with them, I might
Hmm.
not have as much of a relationship. And that might open up, future collaborations, joining other people's channels, just stuff like that. You know what I mean? And so
Yes, for
I
sure.
just wonder that like I'd have to then juggle like keeping my wife entertained and happy as well.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like you have it's really a great opportunity because like all the big names in the space are kind of there. So it's like this is a nice opportunity to like get to know people, get to meet fellow people, and like the in-person connection is always stronger than just like meeting someone online. So it's like let's say you meet someone in person who also does something similar in the space. Well, that's a great opportunity to maybe work together and be like, hey man, let's like do something later.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I like what Shy said. He said, my wife didn't hang out with us at Chicago. She only goes to get away from the kids."
yeah.
She's like, "All right, you can take care of them. I'm on vacation." Firebread says, "My wife is coming." Nice,
Yeah.
interesting. You'll have to tell me what your wife thinks of it. Lego Man says, "I feel that." See, I mean, it's definitely a factor for me. But I think just conventions themselves, it's such a cool idea. Like it's not commercialized. It's just very focused on the people. Like you go to certain events or certain things and you can just feel how corporate it is. You can just feel how like this is all about making money. This is all about getting you to buy something. This is all about this or that or that. But like Lego conventions, it's all about the fans. And I love that. I think it's so cool that we have this way to meet together because I didn't know about conventions growing up. Didn't ever think I didn't even ever conceive a world in where I would gather with other Lego fanatics. I was just like, I'm just gonna be a loner Lego fan, you know what I mean? And so I hope to see more of this kind of stuff, and I hope to see more conventions pop up, especially on the West Coast, because we've got Brick Slopes and there's one in Seattle, but neither of those are very big, and so you don't get a lot of people from the East Coast migrating out to those.
Yeah, so the cool thing about conventions to me personally is like, especially Lego conventions, where it's like it's not necessarily like a lot of conventions just outside of Lego, just in general, always have this kind of undertone of like we're here to sell you a product or like uh, get you to buy something. You know what I mean? But the cool thing about Lego is that it's kind of just like you can go there. It's like costs like $5 or $10 for a ticket. Like anyone can show up. You can like walk around, see different mocks and whatever. But then they also have like the vendor section where it's like a great opportunity for people who have like customs that they sell or whatever to like get themselves out there a little bit, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think they're cool in that aspect because it's not like it's you're at some place where you're expected to like you're expected to like spend money or something. You're just out there, you're having a good time, and it's not like it's some corporate thing that you know is fake.
I wish they would have food at them though. Like there wasn't any food at the convention, so I had to like leave the hall and like drive and find like a fast food restaurant. But I guess that'll probably be
Yeah.
expensive if it's there. Lego Men says, I heard from my local lug they're getting close to some big conventions in Denver. That's awesome. That's much more doable for me. I mean, granted, I'm also about to move, most likely, pretty far. So that kind of changes like what conventions I'll be able to go to. But I mean, that's pretty much what I wanted to do with the whole convention topic is just get your ideas, your thoughts, and my thoughts. I really like to hear because I hear so much about the people who've been going for years. I love to get the thoughts of like the newer people, kind of like you who've only been once. But
Yeah.
the next thing we wanted to talk about was Indiana Jones. And really, the only thing I wanted to talk about specifically was the cancellation. So there was this Temple of Doom set, right? And there were rumors. I don't know if there were images or not, but it got canceled. And then did you see Lego's press release regarding like why it was canceled? So
I have no clue.
they didn't give any reason for why, typical Lego non-answer of a answer. So they didn't really say anything. So we don't really know why. But this Temple of Doom set was canceled. But in my opinion, when you really break it down and you think about it, it's pretty apparent. Like that temple, they were worshiping. I don't remember what it's been forever since I watched it, but it's the one where the dude rips the guy's heart out. Like they have child slaves. They're practicing black magic. So it's like this very evil and dark place. And so to me, it makes sense why Lego wouldn't make something like that, because they're so against guns. They're so, I mean, you can get in like, how Lego it is with their political, with their politics
Yeah,
and how
they're
they want
very,
to be viewed.
they never want to be seen in like a bad light.
Yeah.
Which I get, it's like they want the good PR. But I mean, ultimately, it's like for me, it's like how many people are actually offended? Like literally 0.01% of people who see, like, you know what I mean? Like truly, how many people actually care that like that might be slightly edgy? You know what I mean? It's like I feel like it's just like kind of an overreaction. It's like how many people actually thought Jabba's palace, sorry, it was supposed to be like
Jabba's hut.
Wasn't Jabba's palace like some controversial thing?
Yeah,
as well?
because the it looks like Islamic temples or something. It just and then the other one is the Osprey, because there are military versions of the Osprey. But what I really was curious is like, so Lego is so hesitant to do these things. Why make it at all? Like, how did this thing get into production? Because I've heard rumors. Obviously, I can't guarantee it, but like I've heard rumors that it's already been, that a few were produced, and like it sounds like there were sets. It obviously got far enough along that it was leaked. So if this was such an obvious foul or sin in their eyes, how did it get this far? Like, how is it, like, that's what I don't understand, is like, how did these sets get so close to being released and then get canceled at the very end? That's what because now you have people who are mad, rightfully so, of like, we were expecting this set and now suddenly it's like, oh, it's canceled. And it's like, why make it in the first place? Like, I get people make mistakes, but Lego is a billion-dollar company who puts a lot of time and effort into marketing. So how did it, like, at the point of production, and how was someone like, well, wait a second, like, what about the image? I don't know.
That's a good question, and I don't have the answer for you, unfortunately. But I mean, like, I guess it's a big company. There can be internal communication issues and stuff like that. But it's like probably this was the case that like they started production, they had the idea and everything, and then finally got to the end, and like some executive was probably just like, "Oh, we can't do that because of public image or whatever." It's like that's always how it goes. So I don't know. It's ultimately like it's their decision if they want to release it or not. But it's just always funny to me, like how like I just don't understand how like truly, like how many people, like I was saying, like truly care. Like how many people are truly offended to their core that like this Lego set exists. I don't see that. I don't see the issue or
like, I didn't need, none of us saw the set, but I highly doubt he had a little minifigure with a heart in his hand or had like the actual child slave. So the child building the set they aren't necessarily going to be influenced by any of that. It's really only going to be the adults who are on Twitter who are like, the social justice warriors of this era, who are just so focused on shooting down anything that could be remotely against what they believe in. You know what I mean? And so,
well, yeah, you always have those people though, who want to like ruin things for everyone.
right.
Just is what it is. That's part of life.
Scott says, I think it's a construction issue. I have heard that rumor as well. The only thing I wonder is like, how did it get this far if like they were still having troubles designing it? Because I don't know anything about Lego and how it works, but like I would think if it, what? Sorry, what?
Is that like with the build specifically?
That's yeah. I heard people were saying like there were like physical or like construction issues, which it could be maybe like they rushed it into production to like get these sets out for the Indiana Jones movie and like didn't do their due diligence, and then suddenly like it was on the production line, or maybe a couple of people had built it and was like, hey, it falls apart every time I build it, and they're like, crap, like we rushed this one, we've got to pull it, like we don't have time to redesign it, so we're just gonna put out the other ones. That could definitely be an option as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, the other Indiana Jones sets look great. I don't know. Are you into the Indiana Jones? Like, are you going to pick up any of them?
I mean, I like the figures a lot. I don't know. I feel like I've said this before, but I feel like if I start collecting stuff outside of Star Wars and like some Marvel, that it's just gonna be a downhill spiral. I'm probably gonna pick them up, at least the figures. I'm not big on display sets, so like some of them, like the display ones, I probably will skip over. But I saw one of them had like a cool airplane.
Hmm.
Uh, like another, they're pretty cool. They look awesome. And I really like that updated figure of the old guy. What was his name again? With the gray beard.
Oh, Indiana Jones's dad.
Yeah, his dad. So
Hmm.
like I like those. I like the figures. They look sick. So I'll probably pick those up separately though. That's what I
I'm
usually do with a lot of the display sets, where like I don't really care about the display thing. So like what I'll wait is like 3, 4, 5 months after the release of the set. I'll go on Bricklink and just like buy the figures for cheap once they've been like pushed out
yeah.
in large numbers.
I'm in the same boat. I can't really collect anything outside of Star Wars, or it's like just the dam breaks. It's like there goes all the money. You know what I mean? Because I love Indiana Jones. I love Castle. There is one that broke me, and it's the new Jurassic Park sets. I think I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan. I love dinosaurs growing up, and I still do. And as soon as I saw, because one of my favorite scenes is the Brachiosaurus scene in the first one. So when I saw there was a dual molded Brachiosaurus with the figures, the Jeep, I was like, they've done it. They've broken me. Like I'm going. I am going to get those, but I think I'm going to have to pass on indie for the same reason as you, of like they're just too cool. I know I just fall down a rabbit hole. Maybe one day when I'm rich, if the channel ever takes off, I can go back and buy them off of eBay or something. But for
Yeah.
now, I got to keep the priorities. Okay, keep the priorities in line.
Yeah.
That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Do you have anything else before we get to the Q&A?
No, man, that's pretty much it. I don't have much else going on.
See you later, Dubsy Bricks. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. So Thick came up with a great little topic for the Q&A today. You want to introduce it for us?
Yeah. So my idea was, I was, well, you know, I was thinking about some Q&A topics, and I thought, something I struggle with quite often in my just day to day life is, and I feel like because of the nature of the work that you and I both do, but maybe a lot of people will relate to this, is just sometimes I struggle with inspiration and creativity. I feel like I often feel like every day is the same. I go through the motions. I do the things I need to do, but quite often I just find myself pretty uninspired. And I feel like these days, especially, good ideas are getting harder to come by for me personally. And whether that comes from like, because I have my business and everything like that, and it just feels like sometimes my ability to like come up with new ideas, I'm just tired, or maybe I just don't have energy. But something sometimes just gets to me where I'm like, I can't think of anything. I can't think of new content ideas for YouTube. I can't think of new product ideas for my website. I can't think of new ways to like reach customers or whatever I'm trying to do. So I was just wanting to talk about today, for you specifically, and maybe some people in the chat, like what are some things you guys do? What are some things you guys like integrate into your life to help you get a little inspired and think outside the box and maybe come up with new ideas? So that's what I'm interested in talking about today.
Yeah, it's going to be good. If you guys have any questions regarding creativity, any ideas, let us know. For me personally, like when people ask me what's the hardest part about being a YouTuber or doing YouTube full time, I tell them it's being creative on a timeline. I have to always be on. I have to always be creative. Like I don't get to take a week off, or I don't get to like have this bad month. And so that to me is like, you always like creativity, I feel like is one of those things where it's like universally out of most people's control, right? We can control what time we wake up in the morning. We can control when we eat food. We can control so many things in our lives, but I feel like being creative and getting into a creative headspace is so hard to control. It just sometimes it'll just dump on you, and then other times you're in a drought. And for me, what I think can really help is like first getting down to the root of why it is you don't feel creative, because it can be so many different things like you said, and it can be hard to become creative if you don't understand why it is you're struggling in the first place. Like, take, for example, if I sit down, I'm like, oh, I just can't think of any video ideas. If I'm really burnt out, if I'm really tired or I have a headache, I can force myself to sit down and have a planning meeting, but it's going to be a lackluster planning meeting and I'm just not going to get very good results. Whereas if I recognize, okay, this is uncreativity because I'm tired, because I need a break, because I need to go rest, because I need a massage, because I need to eat food. So instead of doing that bad planning session and getting more down on yourself because you just feel like it's impossible to fix, you separate yourself, you go do something fun, you go do something that changes. And we talked about this a little bit a few weeks ago, doing something very different from what you normally do to get the brain thinking in different ways. Like you said, you have music and cars and working out. I work out as well. I do airsoft, and which just puts the brain in such a different headspace that when you come back, you feel a little bit more fresh. Or maybe like you're just feeling uninspired, but you feel energized. You feel like, okay, I'm not hungry. I don't have a headache. So like what I have started doing is I go watch, I type into YouTube, I just type in Lego Star Wars or Lego videos and I see what comes up and what's doing well. And I take from that, I'm like, okay, how can I apply what's doing well to my channel? I'll give you a specific example. Do you know who TD Bricks is?
Yes.
He did a video a while back called I Built Lego, but in micro scale, I think. So he basically built like a city, but the Lego city, but it was micro scale. And I was like, that's a really cool idea. How do I take that and apply it to my channel? And so what I did was I built the 6 coolest Star Wars cities in micro scale. These right here. You know, this is a Theed Palace. And I never would have had that idea if I hadn't first gone onto his channel. And his video is very different from mine. Like, yes, they're both micro scale cities, but you know, there's a lot of things I could get into. But I was inspired to do that video specifically because I went on someone else's channel and was like looking at their videos. And I'm not telling people to go like rip off other people's video ideas, but you know, just take it and like integrate it into your own channel, or like, you know, just going and looking up what are like, you don't even have to go to Lego, like just go look up YouTube videos in general, challenge videos, and be like, oh, this is cool. This guy's doing this. How do I do this, but in Lego? And so sometimes, you know, broadening your horizon of where you're like kind of like casting a wider net, I guess, for creative ideas rather than just like trying to, because one thing I struggle with is I sit down and I don't know about you, but I have a hard time just sitting down and coming up with ideas. To me, it's like I used to do this thing where every month I'd sit down and have this big planning meeting and I made a big deal out of it. And I realized this isn't how my brain operates. This isn't how I operate. So I tend to always have my phone on hand and I have video ideas that just pop in my head and I write them down. And sometimes it's not even a fully formulated thought. It's just like, ooh, this would be cool for part of a video. And then slowly over time, because it's in my notes and I'm thinking about it, it evolves into an actual video. And then sometimes it's different from the original thought. But because I took the time to write it down, even though I was like, this doesn't really excite me or this isn't complete, it then kind of grew into a video over time. So those are kind of a few options, a few things I've been trying, because I am with you. It's becoming harder to find good ideas. Like I feel like I've exhausted so many good ideas and I'm struggling a little bit more than I used to like come up with good stuff.
I think I agree with you. I feel like these days I just find myself not necessarily burnt out, because I don't really like that word, because I don't know how to explain it, but it's just these days I just find myself like, okay, I have the energy right now to think of a good idea, but like my mind is blank. And sometimes I'll just find myself like I'll be doing the most mundane task ever, and something will just pop into my head where I'm like, whoa, like why didn't I think of that? You know what I mean? And it either is a video idea or it's a new product idea or a new way to like advertise or something like that. Because I recently started like doing a Facebook page, and I'm like, you know, there's a lot of Lego people on Facebook. Like I know a lot of Lego groups. So like, why do I not have a Facebook page where I'm posting? So I started doing that recently, and you know, just like different ideas come to you. But you know what I think it is? I think it's probably a big factor that plays into it is the hyperstimulation we live in today's world, where it's like you're constantly looking at the phone, constantly scrolling YouTube, constantly listening to music, constantly watching movies and advertisements. I think that really creates a noise that just like prevents you from thinking clearly. And like quite often I find myself, the best ideas I get are when I'm bored or when I'm doing something mundane, because my mind isn't like stimulated and kind of has the chance to just like take a step back and like not really be engaged, if that makes any sense. So I've personally been like starting to take time out of my day where I like don't look at my phone at all, um, or like I go away from the computer and I just literally go outside and walk around for like 45 minutes, something like that. Just like doing new activity, like we talked about earlier. Um, so I do find myself sometimes starved of ideas, and especially in this space that both of us kind of like operate in, it's like ideas are like the lifeblood
Yeah.
of everything. It's like
Right.
you constantly need new ones and good ones, and it's like it feels like sometimes you can never get enough of them. So
I think that's you touched on a great thing there of the importance of silence, uh, because the world has become so loud. And I found myself like, okay, I need to be on YouTube more. I need to be on Instagram more because that's where the ideas are. And it's like, that's where other people's ideas are. That is one form of inspiration. But like you said, you need to have balance in all things. The more time you spend on there, there's a higher chance you're blocking out more of the original ideas, more of the stuff that comes to you in silence. Because
yeah,
I think you're right. Like if you do meditation, if you go outside and you walk around, like I've noticed I get a lot of ideas when I'm going to bed because it's finally like there's no noise, there's no talking,
yeah.
everything's quiet. And I'm trying to sleep, and then suddenly these ideas are coming into my head, and I have to write them down. And it's like my brain is finally, and you can't just like sit down and stop for like 10 minutes. You really like it's a process. You need to give your brain time to adjust and like not be engaged. So I think that's a good idea to like kind
And
of.
it's it can be difficult in today's world to unplug. Like I find that sometimes where I'm like, dude, so much of my work is online, so many of my friends are online. Like honestly, I wish I didn't have to use social media personally, because social media has a ton of negative effects. It's cool to like be able to connect with people and share hobbies, but like I'll go on Instagram for a purpose, like to message someone about something important, like whether it's like a business thing or like I'm messaging you to send you something about a stream we're gonna do, whatever. And I'll just like immediately my brain just like sees something and it's like, oh, I wonder what that is. It's like, why do I do that? I'm on here for a purpose, but then I go on there and it's like I like look at some post and look at some memes and I waste 5 minutes. It's like it can be extremely difficult to unplug because like these people who work in like Silicon Valley or whatever, they like know what we are like our brains are like wired to do, our monkey brains, right? So um, it can be difficult to unplug, but I think if you take those 10, 15, 20 minutes to like meditate or just sit in silence and like, not be constantly hyperstimulated, that's when like some of my best ideas come, like when I'm like showering, dude. And that's why like shower thoughts is a thing, right? Because it's like
Hmm.
you're sitting in there, you're not doing anything interesting. You're kind of just like doing something you need to do and just like get over with. But then like something will pop into your brain and it's like, whoa, that's a good idea. And like immediately write it down because good ideas come and go really quickly. Uh, I've had some of the best ideas which just disappeared like 5 minutes later. I'm like, oh, why didn't I write that down?
Yeah. That's one thing I've been trying to get much better at is I used to have this mindset of, oh, that's such a cool thing. I'll remember it. And then I'll be like, "Ah, I don't remember what that
Yeah.
was." And so I have to write down every little thing. But there were some good things, some thoughts I wanted to read in the chat. Slipstream says creative fatigue is real. Take a step back and do something different. Sometimes your best ideas come from doing something else. I find a lot of inspiration from just talking with people. Stuff usually just pops up randomly, even taking ideas from different hobbies. Yeah, that's another good one. I put out a video last week called where I turned the Lego Star Wars diorama sets into Delta Squad dioramas using only the pieces from the sets. And that that idea came from Nolark, one of my friends. He just messaged me and he's like, "Hey, wouldn't it be kind of cool if like you took the dioramas but then like made Delta Squad mocks?" Would never have even thought to do that, and that came from him 100%. So talking with other people and like you know hanging out can definitely help. Let's see.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
I find I'm most creative when I come back from a weekend trip away or something. Yeah, I got to take a step out of the routine. Brainstorm through random input, Star Wars planets list. Don't immediately disregard ideas. Yeah, that's another thing, Cheese, is to not immediately disregard something because it's not like, oh, that wouldn't go viral, or like if it's a nugget of a thought, hang on to it and it could grow into something pretty sweet.
Well, that's the thing we were talking about earlier is like sometimes you think of things which are just like parts of a video, not
Yeah.
necessarily. Sometimes the creative idea isn't necessarily like a macro idea. It might be like super micro where you're like, oh, this camera angle or this way that I talk, something super small like that, you know?
Well, I mean, as we speak right now, I thinking about that scamming video I'm going to make there. I wanted to do like a little fun little intro, and I had a thought for it, and like I'm like, "All right, well, now that we're talking about it, I better write it down before I forget it. And it's literally has nothing to do with the idea. It's just this little 10-second thing for like engagement, but it's like you slowly compile those, and then the whole idea comes together. Like very rarely, I don't know about you, but very rarely does the entirety of the video strike me like a lightning bolt. It's usually a piece at a time that slowly comes together.
Yeah. Well, here's the cool thing is like once you have that like lightning bolt idea, like sometimes I'll get it and I'll picture it in my mind. I'm like, this is what the thumbnail is going to be, this is what the title is going to be. And it's like, you kind of get like super excited because you're like, oh my God, I know what it's going to be. And then you post it and it works. And you're like, whoa. Have you ever had that?
Yeah. Uh-huh. For sure.
And you know, that's just like, that just comes from, you know, the mundaneness. I think those you get some of the best ideas, but like I said, it can be difficult to unplug. So, like Firebird said, you have to give yourself the mental space to actually think. And that's the funny thing too. I noticed that sometimes when I go on vacation or like step away from my work and focus on other things, I'll come back and I'm like refreshed, and I'm like, oh my God, I have all these different ideas, I have all these different things I want to do, and like I took a trip in August last year, between August and September, and I came back and like, dude, that day that I came back and like the next like 2 or 3 weeks, I just had so much like fuel and energy and like drive that I just felt like I was lacking before the trip because I kind of took a step back and I came back more aggressive and I had so many fresh ideas and things I wanted to do. And that's kind of when like, you know, I remember how I told you in September is when I decided that YouTube was going to be like what I wanted to pursue as like my uh, main social media. That's when I came back from that trip and made that decision. And I was at like 500 subscribers at the time, and I was like, okay, this is the one I'm gonna like. I'm gonna obviously keep using Instagram and all this other stuff, but like YouTube is gonna be my main, or try to make it my main. So, and I've, you know, within those like 5 months, 6 months, I've like learned so much in terms of like how this platform works, what people actually care about seeing, and all this type of stuff. So
Yeah, creativity is it's interesting learning not to control when you're creative, but learning instead how to put yourself into a creative headspace. And I think that's kind of the key to the people who seems like they're creative on demand. It's like it's not that they've learned to like I now I'm turning on the creative portion of my brain. They're just more aware of how to get to that state, because that is a state that we can't just turn on and off like we can other things. But it is definitely something we can invite into our lives based on like our daily habits and our actions and being aware of like how to get there.
yeah, yes, definitely, definitely. And you know, it's something which for me just like is such a fascinating topic because some of the biggest strides I've made in like my existence, whether it's like doing my customs or on my YouTube channel, was just from the idea itself of like what I was going to do specifically. So like that's why I find it so interesting because I'm like, how do I get more of this?
Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah. I mean, do you have any, I feel like we hit the creativity pretty good. Like I think this was a great discussion. Do you have anything else before we get into the Mando talk?
let's do Mando. Let's do Mando talk.
All right. Thank you guys for the questions, for the comments. Great insight. That the Q&A is one of my favorite. The themed Q&A is one of my favorite segments because it's fun to pick a specific topic and then get so many different people's insights and input. So I appreciate you guys participating in that. So for this final segment, we're going to talk Mando season 3. So we're not going to talk about this week's episode. We're only going to talk about the one that happened last week. So episode 3. So if you haven't seen episode 4, but you have seen episode 3, don't worry. We're not going to spoil anything. If you haven't seen episode 3, you know, you might want to leave so you don't get anything spoiled. But
Wait, wasn't it episode 4 this week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. It's like last week was episode 3, which is the one we'll be talking about. So yeah, spoilers. Anybody? We'll give you one last second to hop off. But that one to me has probably been my least favorite one so far. Not to say I didn't enjoy it or it was a bad episode, but the caliber of all of these other episodes definitely dipped with that one, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what you think.
So I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I don't think necessarily the quality was bad. I think the story was just mundane.
That's what I meant. I misspoke. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't so much the quality, but like what was happening, the story, what exactly was unfolding.
Yeah, so the story was just felt a little bit like that whole thing in the middle. And I get why they did it. They wanted to show like the connection between this like girl with the short hair and the scientist to like explain what's going on and how she built how she gained his trust and then betrayed him and like all that type of stuff. But I like look, honestly when they did this with Kenobi as well. It's like when they take I get the and they're trying to build out new characters and stuff like that. But when they take so much time out of the series to focus on these new characters and quite frankly boring characters because like who really cares about this scientist and his girlfriend, like uh, when they take so much time out of like a limited series to focus on these like random characters, it's just kind of annoying because you're like we obviously are there to see Mando and like Bo-Katan, like all these types of people. So yeah, the first like 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes were really good, but everything in between, I was like, this could have been 15 minutes or like 10 minutes. We didn't have to like know the nitty gritty of the scientist's life.
Yeah. I enjoyed very much seeing Coruscant, especially because I'm building Coruscant. It's cool to see something I'm so passionate about on a big time TV show, even if it's not the exact section I'm building. I'm like, hey, that's what I'm working. That's my passion project. So, and it was cool to see like the Galactic Opera House again, where like Sidious unveils the tragedy of Plagueis the Wise, and then now Dr. Pershing's there doing his stuff, and then like Mount Umi or Umedi or whatever. That was really cool. Like just I love world building like that, but like that episode was the longest episode of the series, and it was a like filler side episode. And so I'm like you said, this should have been 15 minutes at most because it's called The Mandalorian, and they had the same issue with the Book of Boba Fett, where the two best episodes were The Mandalorian. And it's like, I get that you want to introduce new characters, but like that's for TV shows like The Clone Wars, where you're talking about the Clone Wars. So you're going to have all these different characters. But if you name a TV show The
Exactly.
Mandalorian and then give him 3 minutes at the beginning of and the end of the show, which basically to me, I felt like they put it in there just so that he would be in the show. Like it didn't mesh with the rest of the story. So it almost felt like they were like, we got to put the Mandalorian in somewhere. And so I feel like if they had condense the doctor thing, because I don't care. I like
Yeah,
it
that's the thing. It's like
boring.
I'm all for new characters. Like, dude, give me some doctor, give me some whatever. But it's like understand the balance of like how much to include it. It's like we don't need a whole episode where you're focusing on the doctor or the scientist. And like new characters are always great, but like Riva, cool, a new Inquisitor, but like why was the Kenobi show so focused on her? Like she's not the main character. Kenobi is. So
Right.
it's these types of things where you just like question their creative decisions that just don't make sense. And it's like I sometimes I watch it, I'm like, do they think we're stupid? Like, do they think we're like, do they think like the fans are like not going to notice these things? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And it's like, why did it make sense to them if like so many people are going to be confused by this? You know?
Yeah, and I noticed like it seemed to be pretty generally accepted that like what we're saying a lot of other people felt with like the
Yeah.
longevity of the episode, the overplaying of the story. And so it's interesting that they would do so well with all the other episodes and then there's just that one. It's so strange. Like it was almost like they took someone completely new and were like, all right, you're in charge of that episode. It was very Andor-esque, very Andor-esque, which I'm fine with, but I almost think like, okay, if you really want to include that whole story, break it up over a couple of episodes, make it a B story over 2 episodes instead of a story in a single episode.
See, that's the thing too. It's like if they had like the meeting between the scientist and the girl with the short hair, I keep forgetting her name.
Yeah, he called her.
That's how like irrelevant of a character she is.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, if they had like built up that like trust connection between like 2 episodes, and then on the third one she betrayed him, I feel like that impact would have been bigger.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, and I think maybe if you want to bring this in, like, why is this being brought in episode 3? If the New Republic's going to be, because we've gone 3 seasons without dealing much with the New Republic. We've seen a couple episodes where they've shown up. You know, there's the train transport and like the New Republic X-wing guys. But like, why now are we suddenly getting this? Like, I feel like if you're going to make the New Republic a big part of this season, Dr. Pershing's storyline should have been part of the season opener. Not the entirety of his story, but like show like from the bat, like, okay, here's Mando and here's Dr. Pershing. These are the 2 sides we're going to explore. Then I'd be a lot more okay with it because I'd be like, okay, this is what's good. Because your season opener should set the tone for the rest of the series, I think, because it's a season opener. And so if you had then introduced it, because now I'm fully invested in Mando and Bo and their life, I don't really know that I'm that invested in learning about the New Republic at this point. If they had started it earlier and made it a bigger plot, I'd be more interested, but I'm just so invested in this great story they've already given me. And it was almost like they ripped us out of it for an episode.
And it just felt out of place. That's the truth.
Yeah.
It felt like the type of thing we should probably see in like the Rangers of the New Republic show or whatever, you know? Like, it's just weird that they're making all these just strange creative decisions, and it makes you wonder, like, is this because of like executives putting their fingers in the creative aspect, or is it just because the writers are weird? You know, it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, because and I'm sure they'll answer this later on in the series, but my biggest question is, why are you showing us this now? What does this have to, because I thought, and the rumors circulate, and granted, this is me listening to other people, but I was under the impression that the Mandalorian would be about the retaking of Mandalore. And so I'm like, I don't really know that the New Republic has anything or much to do with that. Because that's a completely different story. And like, I don't think New Republic forces are going to show up and save the day at the end of the season. That just doesn't sound right. And so it's like, it sounds like then you're just developing a completely different story, and one that I'm not really interested in, and takes away from the retaking of Mandalore, which is what I want to see. So I'm interested to see how they make this, or if they're going to make this a valuable storyline to us.
Did you watch Bad Batch?
No, I didn't watch Bad Batch. Was it good?
Yeah, today's episode was really good. It was really, really good. Man, I know like you've been telling me you're a little hesitant, and after season 1 you didn't love it, but this season of Bad Batch, like probably 80% of the episodes have been bangers. I'm thoroughly like enjoying this show, probably more than Mando, if I'm being honest. I've always been a big Mando fan, but like Star Wars animation for me is just like what I grew up on.
Peak content right there.
Yeah, so these episodes are like really well thought out. They're like clearly like just high quality Clone Wars style content, and I feel like so many people are still sleeping on that show, and it kind of makes me upset that more people are not watching it, because I know so many people who are Clone Wars fans who like loved Clone Wars, but like now that Bad Batch is on, they're not even engaging with it, and I'm like, dude, you would love this, but like so people I know, and I'm like what's the disconnect? I don't get it. Like, I don't get why so many people don't want to watch that show. But I'm like, if they were watching this, they'd be like, oh my god, this is so good.
I think it's because of what they did with season 1. I think that turned a lot of people off. That's what it was for me. Is I watched season 1 and I was like, I don't really like, if this is what type of show this is going to be, I'm not interested moving forward. And it sounds like they've changed and gone in a different direction with season 2, but they just lost the interest of a lot of viewers, and they lost that investment with that first season. That's what I think anyways.
Maybe you're right. But I think it's going to be one of those shows where like it's going to be a slow start, but then we're going to look back on it in like 5 to 10 years and be like, that was good. The same way we look at Clone Wars.
Yeah, I think, you go back and watch season 1 and 2 of the Clone Wars. rough. Like it's not what it was in the later seasons. Like
Well,
I
that's
don't know,
what I'm saying. It's
season
like,
one was good, but like I personally like especially early Ahsoka really bothered me.
yeah. Well, that in Star Wars content in general, typically, maybe aside from like the sequels, typically ages gracefully. Um, and you notice like a lot of stuff is unappreciated when it's coming out. Even the prequels was like this. Um, but then like 5 to 10 years later, people are like, "Oh, this is good." Remember, like, oh, and you kind of get like so much of Star Wars is like big picture building, and when
Hmm.
you're watching it for the first time, you're like, you don't really see how it's connecting. It's kind of a disconnect. You're like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why are they doing this? But then once the story is so big, that's kind of the big problem. That's a conundrum with Star Wars is that the story is so big that like you need time to like expand it so that by the time you're finished with it at season 6 or whatever of Bad Batch, you'll be like, oh, so this is how it all connects together. And then later when you watch season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again, you're like, okay, that's why that guy did that. This makes more sense. So like that's what makes Clone Wars as a TV series good because it's leading to Revenge of the Sith. So that's why I say Star Wars content needs time to like catch up and like be understood because so much of it like yeah there's some filler here and there but like I think it's difficult to judge initially because it's just you don't know where it's going to go. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think definitely the TV shows like they need time to grow. For me, what I didn't like about Bad Batch was I didn't like the humor. I didn't like the goofy side of it. I didn't really like Omega, and so I had no interest in seeing their stories continue and develop.
Yeah, well, Omega's a very Ahsoka style character where like she's one of these people and like Ezra is the same where it's like one of these characters who people typically find annoying and then over time grows on the audience. But that's like a common stereotype, like especially
Yeah,
Dave. He does that with like all his characters in Airbender and everything else like that. So
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch Bad Batch someday. We'll
I'm
see.
I'm I'm, I'm really enjoying it, and low key more than Mando. So I'd recommend. That's all I'm
It's
gonna say.
It's interesting because I put out a poll on Monday asking what people enjoyed more, and 75% said they enjoyed Mando, and 25 said Bad Batch. But I've had multiple people tell me that they're enjoying Bad Batch more than Mando right now.
I mean, look for me
Because I think
personally,
Scott's in the same boat as he enjoys Bad Batch more than Mando.
it's like a week by week basis. So my opinion on it changes because of the fact we get an opinion, we get a new episode every week. So I'm like, now I like Mando more. Now I like Bad Batch more. But I mean, I'm just happy to be getting good content. Like, at the end of the day, it's like with the stuff they put us through with the sequels, and I feel like with Kenobi, at this point, I'm just happy to be getting content that's not like atrociously terrible. Like, that's it.
Yeah. And that's at the end of the day why I hope they make more Bad Batch and why I still support Bad Batch even though I don't like it is because good Star Wars content is a win for everybody. It's a win for you, it's a win for me because more people are now thinking about Star Wars. More people are like, "Oh, did someone do something with this on YouTube?" When they see our Lego Star Wars content pop up, they're more likely to click on it because they're being engaged with Star Wars content. So that's why I say like even if it's something I'm not into, if it's good and it's doing well, I'm happy because it's going to support me. It's going to support our community and it's going to help it continue to thrive and grow. Which, if Star Wars dies, that's going to hurt you. That's going to hurt me because we're going to lose out on future viewership. We're going to lose out on those future people coming into our stuff.
And look, man, I think especially nowadays, it's like a better time than ever to be a fan. Um, you just see like what goes on online. It's like, um, if there's content coming out and like it's good content, like there's just it's a great time to be a fan. Like even 10 years ago, like there weren't people talking about Star Wars and nerdy stuff on the internet. Like it just wasn't a thing. Like yeah, there was a few like Lego channels, but it wasn't what it is now.
No, not even close.
So it's cool that like this even exists as a possibility. Um, and I'm just happy to be getting good content. And ultimately, too, it's like you see it in the numbers too. Like you can see your YouTube analytics. Like I posted a Mando video recently, just like showing off some figures, and like I was like kind of flabbergasted at how well it did. Um, and it's cool that we have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if you had told either of us a decade ago that we would both be making like Lego Star Wars content full time, we both would have been like, oh, okay, all
I think
right.
if you told me that a year ago, I wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. You don't need to go back 10 years for me either.
Like a year ago, I didn't even have a YouTube channel, so I mean, I was doing Lego content on like Instagram, but I didn't, so.
What's up, TJ? He says Bad Batch is very much a hit or miss show, but when it's a hit, it's done fantastically.
Agreed.
People should make more than Star Wars because if it dies, it never will. You can still get views.
Well, here's the thing. For my logic is like, look, if there's a demand for it today, it's not like it's gonna disappear tomorrow.
No, Star Wars isn't gonna die.
But that's not how things work. It's like if people are interested in something today, they're also going to be interested in it 10 years from now. That's just it's like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, there might be ebb and flow. There might be better times than other times. Like obviously Star Wars, like 2015, 16, 17, when the sequels were coming out, was huge, right? Everyone and their mom was talking about Star Wars. But now obviously it's slowed down a bit. And sure, it's ebb and flow, but that's like anything. Like everything is going to be like that. So like ultimately, that's just whatever community or anything you're in is just you're going to have ebbs and flows.
Yeah. See you later, Imperial Builds. Thanks for joining. I also think even if Star Wars were to die, yes, it would hurt our channels, but we have a community already, and those people aren't going anywhere. Like people came to Thick Brick for a reason, and people came to Coconut Brick Studios for a reason. But I would bet you a good amount of money people stay because of who we are and what we're doing. So even if Star Wars itself was to stop producing content, I wouldn't stop, which means those people are still there getting the same thing from me that they want. So like,
Well,
it's not going anywhere.
If you look at it logically too, like literally just look at it logically, like your community wouldn't exist if there wasn't an interest for that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have 40,000 subscribers if those 40,000 people didn't care about Lego Star Wars.
Right.
End of story. Like that's, so like, that's just how it goes. Like,
I would like to branch out into like some Jurassic Park stuff maybe later this year. I'm toying with doing like some little Jurassic Park mocks.
You can do that. And here's the thing, I think so many people are afraid to branch out because like let's say if you do Jurassic Park content, like Jurassic Park Lego content, my intuition tells me that off the bat it's not going to do as well.
No, not even close.
And I think that too. But here's the thing is that like in the beginning it might be slow to start off, but long term in the macro scale, it'll expand your audience in a way that, only doing Lego Star Wars content wouldn't allow you. Because now you're going to have something for Lego Jurassic Park people. And, that's kind of like maybe your first 5 Jurassic Park videos won't do well. But because of the fact that you're going to already have some overlap, you're probably, like, let's be honest, probably 5 to 10% or maybe more of your existing audience would watch your Jurassic Park videos. But those 5 to 10% would help you reach a brand new audience. And then you would bring in more people, and then you can become kind of like a Lego channel, not just Lego Star Wars. So,
yeah, hopefully someday we'll see. I mean, I'm going to get those sets later this year, and then maybe once I've got the channel a little bit more established and I can take more time away from Star Wars content, because it's all about just waiting for the right time to ease into a new type of content or whatever.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too. And if you're pretty clever about how you choose to like strategically release things, like if there's like a Jurassic Park movie coming out and you release a Jurassic Park video, like that's obviously the best time, you know. So
Yeah. Lego Man says I'd watch some Jurassic Park content. There we go. I got one viewer. Got one viewer already.
I'll be number 2, Dan.
We got 2. I think too, like it's just good to going back to the creativity conversation we were talking about earlier. It's good to also pursue projects that don't have any other benefit other than making you happy. And so doing the occasional Jurassic Park video, doing the occasional Imperial mock, doing the occasional maybe you're into Assassin's Creed and like, oh, I just want to do that to be able to experience it and to experience that love I have for this IP or this franchise, that can reinvigorate you. That can re-excite you to go back to the other stuff, just being able to take a little break. So even if you don't necessarily pull in a lot of views, it could be good mentally and could keep you on that track that you would have fallen off of if you hadn't done it. So, even that kind of stuff has its benefit, even if it's not view or traditional growth related stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, ultimately, nothing is really like there's no right answer. That's the funny thing, you know. So, like, every time I find myself in life, like, kind of second guessing or questioning, like, oh, should I do this? Should I not do this? Like, what if this doesn't perform? Ultimately, there's no right answer. You can just test and learn and see what you like to do, what works, and that's it.
Agreed. Well, that's, I'm pretty much out of my thoughts. Anything else you want to discuss, Mando related or otherwise?
Oh, man, it was a good stream.
Yeah, definitely. We did better. I was a little bit more prepared this time, but thank you guys all for joining, for hanging out. This will do it for us. We usually like to keep it about an hour anyways. MKM Bricks, what's up, man? Thanks for joining. And yeah, I mean, if you want more content from either of us, Thick Brick, he's got his channel on YouTube. I, of course, am still here on Coconut Brick Studios. Later this week, I have another what if style video coming out. I recently started doing those and they seem to be pretty well received. So this one's going to be a sad one. This one was definitely rough to make, but it's what if Captain Rex killed Ahsoka during Order 66?
Oh no!
So it's I don't know. It's an interesting one. I tried to make it, it's not just sad. I think people will enjoy it, but that'll be coming out on Friday or Saturday. I'll be streaming again Saturday, and then Sunday, of course, we got Coruscant. Good old Coruscant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sick, man.
But yeah. Thank you guys all for joining. Thank you as always, Thick, for joining me. And we will catch you guys next time. But until then, happy building.